We are now just 9 days away from the NBA draft and 13 days away from the start of NBA free agency, which is one of the most exciting times in the NBA during the offseason anyway, and with Game 6 of the NBA Finals tonight and a possible conclusion to the season if the Bucks can close it out at home, I for one am very excited to see this offseason really start ramping up and seeing what moves this new Bulls front office will make after being incredibly aggressive at the trade deadline in March. And so in this video, I want to talk about some of the things to expect as we approach these dates, and I do also want to share a quick update on Zach Lavine and the Olympics. So what's going on, everyone? You were listening to Bulls Central here. Hope you're all doing well. Real quick, if you missed my last video that I uploaded yesterday, I did a one-on-one interview with Daniel Greenberg, which was an incredible experience for me to talk directly to a guy that I have been following on Twitter for years now and getting his insight and thoughts on the Bulls offseason and his predictions for this upcoming season. So feel free to check it out in case you missed it. I'll leave it linked in the description as well as on the end screen of this video. I'll try to have more of these one-on-one interviews with Bulls insiders as long as they agree to do an interview with me. That's generally the hardest part, is actually getting a hold of them. But if you guys really like this type of content, I'll try to keep coming out with those, and let me know in the comments what you guys think. But with all that out of the way, I did want to start with the topic in regards to Zach Lavine and what was announced yesterday, as first reported by Shams Charania, that Zach Lavine has entered the health and safety protocol and has not traveled with the rest of the team to Tokyo. However, they do expect Lavine to be able to join the team later this week, so it would be leading one to believe that this was specifically for contact tracing purposes, because if Lavine had in fact tested positive for COVID, he would have likely had to miss the Olympics and not be able to compete, similar to what happened with Bradley Beal, which would be a massive blow to Lavine, to Bulls fans, and really for Team USA as a whole, as Zach Lavine is one of the better players based on his performance in the exhibition games, being the third highest scorer on the team. Now, I'm not going to go too in-depth on this topic because really it's going to be kind of a wait-and-see game for Lavine right now to see if he'll be cleared to fly over to Tokyo and if he'll be able to compete in the Olympics, which it sounds like that will be the case, and this was done more out of an abundance of caution. But if Zach did in fact have to miss competing in the Olympics as a whole, that would really be rough, because if you're a Bulls fan, you want to see your best player compete on a global level and show to the rest of the league what he can do and what he's capable of to make Chicago a more attractive free agency destination. Not only that, but just for Lavine's overall development and experience to be able to compete with the best players in the world would be greatly missed if he wasn't able to play. So we hope that Lavine is okay and that he's healthy and that he will be able to join the team this week. I'll keep you guys posted on that as reports come out. Now, as far as the NBA draft, which is right around the corner, I know most Bulls fans are probably thinking, well, why are we getting excited about the draft? We don't even have our own pick, and we're just drafting in the second round, which isn't as exciting because players drafted in the second round are few and far between, and some don't even end up making a team or even playing a single game in the NBA. Well, the reason it's important is because draft night is generally when the NBA sees the most trades around the league aside from the trade deadline, because teams are looking to move picks, players, and to improve their overall roster, or if they're going into a rebuild. If you remember, the Bulls made a blockbuster trade on draft night in 2017 when they traded Jimmy Butler to the Wolves for Zach Lavine, Chris Dunn, and the Wolves' number 7 pick, which ended up becoming Lauri Markkanen. Now, I hear a lot of Bulls fans saying that the Bulls should look to trade to move up into the draft to get a first round pick, since we already traded our first round pick to the Magic. Well, to be honest, I don't really see how this makes sense for the Bulls, or why the front office would even do this, given the fact that this team is now looking to build right now and win right now and build around Lavine with the trade that they made for Vucevic, and they literally traded away 2 first round picks for him. They are now more focused on getting established players rather than just draft picks. And if the Bulls were able to trade up, you're talking about giving up current assets to get into the first round. And yes, a first round pick is nice, but the Bulls don't really have time to look to bring in more players who are going to need a few years to develop. Zach is 26, Vucevic is 30. You need to get guys who are going to fit that timeline, and trading up to get a first round pick just isn't going to do that. Now, what I would like to see, and I actually suspect might happen, is the Bulls might make a big trade on draft night. And I think that trade could involve one of Tomas Satoransky or Thaddeus Young. And the reason I think one of them is likely going to get moved on draft night is because the front office has until August 1st, the day before free agency begins, to decide whether to fully guarantee the last year of these two players' contracts or waive them to free up cap space. That's the deadline for them. So on draft night, this enables them to shop around and see what kind of value they can get for trading either of these guys and getting their full salary off the books rather than waiving them and still have their partial guarantees count towards the cap. Now, personally, my hope is that the Bulls do keep Thaddeus Young, and I even think Satoransky, he would be a great backup point guard for the Bulls if they can bring in a true starting point guard. But in order to do that, they're gonna need to free up space, and getting rid of Satoransky is probably one way to do that. I think Thaddeus Young is much more valuable, and if they're able to hold on to him, then that would be great. Unless, of course, they can get a decent trade for him in return. Now, some of you might be asking, well, shouldn't we be expecting a trade to happen in the form of a sign-and trade for Lauri Markkanen on draft night? Well, no, because technically Lauri cannot be traded via a sign-and trade until free agency begins on August 2nd, because again, he is a restricted free agent and the Bulls would not be able to quote unquote sign him until August 2nd, which at that point they could then sign and then trade him to another team. So if a sign and trade for Lauri does in fact happen, it will not happen until after August 2nd. And honestly, I may have to take that day off from work on August 2nd because I think so much is going to be happening around the league, and that includes changes to the Bulls as well. I've talked about my free agency predictions before, but I personally think the Bulls are going to be aggressive this free agency and pursue one of Lonzo Ball, Kyle Lowry, or Spencer Dinwiddie. I'll be frank, the Bulls are likely going to have to overpay one of these three guys much more than they're worth, but they're going to have to do it if they want to bring this team back to relevancy and take a gamble on going all in and building around Lavine, just as they did with the trade for Vucevic. For Lonzo Ball, my hope is you likely wouldn't have to pay more than $20 million a season for him, but my guess is he's likely going to get higher offers from other teams. If that doesn't work out, I personally still feel Kyle Lowry is the best option for the Bulls, as long as it's on a 2-1 deal with the third year of his contract being a team option. Now, I've explained this before, but the reason I actually like Kyle Lowry for the Bulls is that despite his age, because yes, I know he's old, but despite his age, he's still a very effective player. And for the Bulls to bring in a former all-star veteran who is a great floor general, a playmaker, a solid defender, a great outside shooter, and an NBA champion, it's hard to be able to replace that kind of experience on a team that is in need for more veteran voices who are very comfortable at running an offense. This also would still enable you to develop Coby White by having Lauri take Coby under his wings and be a mentor to him, rather than simply just replacing Coby with Lonzo Ball. Since if you bring in Lonzo Ball, he's much younger than Lauri, and at that point, there would be a positional fit and struggle between Ball and Coby White. And then finally, Spencer Dinwiddie. I do think this option is looking to be less and less likely for the Bulls with the amount of money that's been reported that Dinwiddie is looking for, which appears to be a 5-year contract over $100 million, which is insane for a guy who's coming off an ACL injury at 28. And we're not talking about an all-star level caliber player. I don't see how any team gives him that kind of contract. And if some team does, I sincerely hope that it's not the Bulls. But if the Bulls could bring in Dinwiddie on a contract that is actually worth his value, this would be a good pickup for the Bulls, because you likely could, or I guess I say should anyway, get Dinwiddie on a cheaper contract than you otherwise would with Kyle Lowry or Lonzo Ball. So I actually expect a move like one of these to happen on the day free agency begins, because I think the Bulls will want to make a quick jump on one of these guys to really secure a solid point guard that can help round out this roster. I don't think they're going to wait and just let free agency drag on and play out while other guys are getting snatched up, and then the Bulls have to resort to their plan C, D, or E even, because all the possible targets have now signed with other teams. I think the Bulls, very similar to what they did at the trade deadline on the day of it anyway, they were one of the first to pull the trigger on a trade that morning before other teams like the Boston Celtics, who were expected to be in play for Nikola Vucevic, could snatch him up for a better trade offer, going in there and doing that before any other team was able to get in. They acted quick and got the deal done, and that's what I expect on August 2nd when free agency begins. So it's going to be a fun few days between the draft and free agency. I do expect the Bulls to make a trade on draft night, albeit probably a smaller trade that would involve Thaddeus Young or Satoransky, then also make a big move on the first day of free agency to upgrade their point guard spot. And I wouldn't be surprised if Lauri Markkanen is included in a sign-and trade on that day or shortly thereafter in the coming days. Those are my thoughts and predictions, though. I want to know what you guys think. What kind of moves do you think the Bulls will make on draft night as well as the start of free agency? Let me know in the comments, and as always, be sure to subscribe if you're a Bulls fan, as I do post daily Bulls content. Thanks again for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you in the next one.